Happy Friday and welcome to Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I am Jason Fitz. We've got a wild, stacked day for you. We've got 2 hours where we're going to get caught up for a huge weekend coming across the board and all the big news. But as we left the air yesterday, stories started to break that has absolutely rocked everybody, and it's yet another gambling scandal. We have dozens that have been charged in a college hoops point-shaving scandal that traces to college hoops and also international basketball. And it's one of many. As you see here, this graphic shows you just some of the global sports gambling scandals we've dealt with in the last 365 days. And Caroline, leads to an important question. As much as everybody watching right now, so many of the people that watch on the weekend, so many of the people that consume sports are sitting there with their phone in their hand and they're looking for opportunities to gamble on their favorite site. The question is sports betting actually ruining sports?
I can't go that far and say that sports betting is ruining sports. I think we need to ask ourselves before we answer that question, what exactly does ruining quote unquote sports mean? Because viewership in the NFL has never been higher than it is right now. Viewership in college football has never been higher than it is right now. The TV network money has never been higher than it is right now. The amount of money that's being invested into all of these professional sports leagues and also into college sports as well has never been higher than it is right now. So, I mean, if you want to look at the dollars and cents of it all, if you want to look at the viewership numbers, then of course not. If anything, you could say that sports gambling is actually helping sports. And I think to a certain extent, it is. Because what sports gambling has done has opened the door to allow people to care about things that maybe they previously wouldn't have cared about. I host Hoops 360 with Cassandra Negley. We do a women's basketball podcast, and we talk so much on that podcast about the massive growth in women's basketball, both in college and at the WNBA level. A big part of that is because of the star value, you know, the Caitlin Clarks, the Angel Reeses, the Sophie Cunninghams, the Nafisa Colliers, so on and so forth. But I think another big reason for that is because of gambling. The people are paying attention to the WNBA because they've got $50 on Brianna Stewart's over under point total, or they've got, $50 on the Lynx minus 2.5. So I think that has opened the door, at least for new sports fandoms. If gambling is what gets you as a kind of the gateway drug to get you to care about new leagues, well then great. That just makes you a more well-rounded sports fan. I would say of overall, my thought on this is not that it's ruining sports. It's changing our relationship with sports. Maybe for the good, maybe for the bad. It's just different. Because like I said, we're fans of more sports. We pay attention to more sports now because we are kind of financially invested. The other side of that, though, is now since people are personally financially invested into the individual performances of players or the individual performances of teams, I think our fan allegiance has gone by the wayside a little bit. No longer are we cheering for our favorite players and our favorite teams all the time. We're cheering for our bottom line. And I say we, I'm saying collectively as a sports fan society, we are cheering for the teams that we put money on. Or we're attacking on the internet or in person the players that, reach the under on their point total when you put 20 bucks on the over. It's changed our relationship with how we watch, how we consume, and how we feel about sports. But at the end of the day, if it's not going anywhere. Sports gambling is so ingrained in the sports experience that the toothpaste is out of the tube. Like, we've opened up Pandora's box. We've got sports shows on FanDuel TV. We've got, we've got all sorts of sports books ads on the field, on the sidelines, commercials in the middle of games. We've got LeBron James as a spokesperson for a sports book. We have so much money that's being made from sports betting. It ain't going anywhere.
Well, I mean, that's why, Caroline, I'd make the opposite argument that most make. Gambling has actually saved sports. In the modern climate where it's impossible for things to cut through and you have to have money to get anything done, gambling's where a lot of that comes from. In fact, look back at the post from Yahoo Sports a few days ago about the most watched TV events. Of the 100 most watched TV events in all the land, 95 of them last year were sports events. So everybody is still watching sports. 90 of the top 100 events were football between the NFL and college football combined. Most of that the NFL. The fact is, how many people watching right now have a group text that's just about parlays? How many people watching right now ride with or against their buddies depending on whether or not they're on a heater? And to your point, you've got leagues that are sponsored by gambling. You've got promotions that are sponsored by gambling. You have TV shows all over the place, content that is sponsored by gambling. It's all being made because gambling dollars help get it made. And I don't want to miss the most obvious portion of this. If you love the NFL, for example, remember that the salary cap is determined by how much revenue is brought in by the league. Where's a lot of that revenue come from? Gambling. Whether it's selling TV spots or whether it's direct sponsorships, either way, it's the money from gambling that is a large part of why we see this massive, not the money from your personal account that goes into your favorite sports betting platform. No, but the sports betting platforms deciding that they are willing to spend so much money on advertising to make sure that you know that with $5 you can get free play here. That is not accidental. That money is part of what's fueling athletes making more money than ever. It's part of what's fueling a rise in the salary cap. It's part of the reason that teams like the Dodgers are willing to pay whatever it takes because they know they're going to make money. It's part of the reason that even college sports are looking around and saying there's money in this everywhere. So, yeah, there are bad apples taking advantage of it, sure. But to say that it's killing sports, I think it's the opposite. I think gambling is a big part of what, in the modern climate where it's so hard for content to cut through and for people to cut through, and it's so hard to make a difference when there's so much everywhere, gambling is a big part of the money that actually makes all of this happen. So, Caroline, I think while it's safe to say, hey, we continually catch people that are breaking the rules and this is a problem, the problem, to your point, is never going to go anywhere if your answer is eliminate gambling.
You're not going to. And the pushback that I think that might exist to your point, Fitz, that gambling is safe in sports is, well, gambling has now questioned the integrity of the game, our faith and our trust in the integrity of the game. And look, if that's how you feel, I can't really argue with you. Coming off the heels of this NCAA basketball gambling scandal that just came months after the NBA gambling scandal, that came after the Shohei Ohtani translator gambling scandal, that came after Calvin Ridley's gambling scandal, that came off of hockey gambling scandals. I mean, how many scandals have we had? I mean, look, that's 6 right there just in the last calendar year. That doesn't even include going back to the last, 5 to 8 years, I think is fair, of this timeline of modern day legalized sports gambling. So that I think is fair. That is fair to feel that now you have questioned the integrity of games because we have now had all of these point shaving scandals. But to that, I would say this isn't new. Gambling, point shaving, game fixing has existed since the beginning of time. Go back to the Chicago Black Sox, Pete Rose, the college basketball gambling scandal of the 1950s. Just because we have sports gambling apps on our phones does not mean that that's the invention of compromising the integrity of some of these games. This has existed since the beginning of time. But now we just know about it. Now we are inundated with it. Not only with all of the news stories that are coming out, NCAA scandal, NBA scandal, so on and so forth, but we are also inundated with ads. My parents live in St. Louis, Missouri, and Missouri just became a legalized sports gambling state on December 1st. So they are brand new to all of it. And I asked my parents, like, are you sick of all of the ads yet? And they said it's constant. It's constant on social media. It's constant on TV. Every single billboard you passed is a different casino or a different sports book. So you are literally swimming in the deep end of so much of this just gambling content and gambling promotion. So I get it if you just feel like it's at a different level, or if it's just overwhelming the amount of gambling content that we see on a daily basis, but it's not new. And if we all of a sudden just say, okay, sports gambling is illegal, everything that we legalize, we're going to take back. First of all, that's never going to happen, but let's live in a world where it does. What does that do? What does that do? That doesn't mean gambling goes away. That just means that gambling is no longer regulated. It's the same thing when weed was legalized. I thought it's a great thing because now you get safe, regulated weed that your tax dollars and your money gets put back into your local economies, and it helps your local community. So it doesn't We can't act like all of these things, all of these vices, gambling, drugs, alcohol, are just going to go away if you make it illegal. But if you make it illegal, what you're doing it is just pushing it to the back of the house instead of having these guardrails in place to make sure that we're doing it the right way.
Well, and I hear you, and I think you're really right that trust is being eroded, but also
Mhm.
personal responsibility is being thrown away. And part of
Yeah.
this, and when I say that, like to me, half of the people that are out here on Twitter X, whatever you want to call it now, that are telling you every week, oh, the NFL is so rigged. It's obvious that this thing is rigged. My answer to that is always the same thing. If it's obvious to you that it's rigged, why are you watching? If you're so upset about it, if you are convinced that there's truly a script, stop watching or embrace it like the WWE and become part of whatever you think that is. Like, if you truly believe it's rigged, why are you supporting it? The number of people, because you're right, there are so many people that are sitting here saying, oh my God, you can't trust this thing is so fixed. Coaches know the over under. And they're saying that while they're looking in their phone, placing more bets. If you truly believe that this whole thing is fixed and you're too stupid to stop betting, that's not my problem. Unfortunately, that's where we are now. Like, everybody seems to want somebody else to step in and fix this. And the thing is, like, to me, sports gambling has become such a part of the community of sports fandom that it's part of what makes, the whole experience grow. Much like fantasy football, something that Yahoo is obviously wildly invested in. Fantasy football is a part of what brings everybody together during football season. I would argue that in general, the number of times that I see my sports fans' texts grow and blow up on a Tuesday night because there's a wild person popping off that nobody expected, and people have weird parlays. Like, this is just part of the community that has come around sports. The problem is, I do think we're going to wake up in 15 years and wonder why so many people have a gambling problem. The thing of it is,
Mhm.
it's not up to sports to fix that. It's up to everybody right now to look around and say, wow, I need guardrails. I gamble. I make no bones about it. I've talked about it on this show. I gamble. This year, to be fully transparent, as I've been on this show, I lost all the money I was comfortable losing on football in the first month of the season. And you know what I did after
Relatable.
that? I shut it down. I shut it down, and I haven't placed a bet since because I lost what I'm comfortable losing. And next season, I'll stack it up again, and hopefully I'll do as well as I did a couple of years ago. That is up to me to have my own personal responsibility. I think part of what's happening right now is there's a lot of people yelling at the gambling problem like it's up to gambling to fix personal responsibility. Like, it's up to each of us as individuals to own our own you-know-what and figure it out, to me, Caroline. Like, I'm not trying to be harsh,
Yeah.
but I just think that it's not society's job to fix every single individual's inability to control themselves. It's up to some people to turn around and put their phones down.
It is fascinating to me anytime we have one of these, point shaving scandals or the latest gambling news. It's always sports gambling's the problem and not bad people are the problem. Or these people that continue to show up in these indictments, they're the problem. It's the system, or it's sports gambling. And look, is sports gambling perfect? Of course not. I do think that it could potentially lead people down very scary and dangerous roads, but I don't think that's any different than any other vice that exists out there. When somebody gets a DUI, it's terrible, it's awful. There is zero excuse to be driving while under the influence. But I don't see anyone pointing the finger to alcoholic beverage companies. I don't see anyone pointing the finger to car manufacturers. No, we point the finger to the person who decided to make the bad decision to drive while under the influence. That is your fault. You made a bad decision and now you have to pay for that. It's nobody else's decision. It's the same reason why I always kind of roll my eyes a little bit at I feel like a little bit of pearl clutching that happens when we hear a lot of people outraged that, let's say, LeBron James, for example, he's partnering with DraftKings and he's in DraftKings commercials. I'll hear so many people say, like, how dare LeBron James be that kind of, sponsor something when he's a role model. I'm like, it's not LeBron James's responsibility to babysit your kid or, be the moral high ground for all the children across America. Like, what's the difference between LeBron James being in a DraftKings commercial versus Tony Romo being in a Corona commercial? Kids watch football games that Tony Romo calls. So we can't keep putting the onus on individuals and the people that work with these sports books or the sports books themselves or sports gambling as a whole. Are they perfect? No. Are they flawed? 1000%. And there are certain guardrails that I think do need to be in place, and a lot of times are in place. That's why I have faith in the system. But we can't be pointing the fingers at the system as a whole rather than the individuals. We don't do that in any other industry in America.
And the fact is, look, in my career in media, I've been doing this professionally for about a decade. Over the course of that decade, to be fully transparent, I've made money reading about companies like DraftKings and FanDuel. I've gotten paid to do that in my life.
Yeah.
Never once did I sit down and say, oh, what message is that sending to the children, right? Like, because at the end of the day, parents need to parent. And this is where I'll be the old man in the room. And sometimes I think I say that jokingly a lot to you and really to our audience a lot of times. But I think there's perspective that comes from it because people may not remember, and I do because I was a music kid. In the 80s, there was a heavy metal band, Judas Priest, that was literally sued by a group of families because their kids committed suicide, which was a tragedy. But they sued Judas Priest for the music, saying that the music caused the action. I'm old enough to remember when we sat here and said, wait, you can't say that in a song because kids will listen to a song. And now we look at it and don't apply that logic at all. I'm old enough to remember when we looked at music and said, music is causing society to go downhill, instead of looking at music and saying, embrace what you want to embrace. And I know they're very different things, Caroline, but to me, there's just an element of all of this where when things come into society, whether it's music or whether it's when, frankly, you could start looking at porn on your phone instead of having to go to seedy places to do it. Each step of society's growth in these things, whatever you want to call it, change in these things, each step of them has caused more people to have more things at their fingertips. How they manage that is just up to each individual to do their best. It's the wild, wild west out there with gambling right now. And I don't envy parents that are trying to figure out how to navigate these waters. I don't at all. But also, at the end of the day, I can't make it LeBron's job or Kevin Hart's job in any of these commercials or any other entertainer's job. I can't make it their job to sit back and say, well, I don't want to talk about gambling because I have 12-year-old fans. I take that responsibility seriously when you have young fans. And it's a reason why when I was in a band that was lucky enough to have a big song that was very popular with the younger audience, we didn't drink on stage. We didn't have alcohol in the crowd. We took that seriously. I can take that seriously, but not look at LeBron and say, hey, man, it's up to you to make sure that you don't advertise a gambling site because that could turn one of your kids into suddenly a gambling addict. It's just the number of steps we're going through. I think it's all fair to look at it and say, man, there are bad apples. But remember, bad apples are doing bad things. Like, if the answer is let's get rid of gambling, do we really think it will get rid of point shaving? Because, again, these things that were all done on this scandal were all already illegal. So is there a problem? Yes. Do I know how to solve it? No. But is the solution getting rid of gambling? I don't think gambling is ruining sports. I think it's saving it. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. We're just getting started in what is going to be a wild, big show. Got a lot of fun to get to, and we will do it. We got a weekend of football to preview, and coming up next, we're going to figure out which of the head coaching candidates out there is actually the hot name everybody wants and why it's shocking the world.
And I didn't have any gym equipment. I didn't live near a gym. So I would watch TV, and every commercial break, I'd jump on the floor and bust out some leg lifts from Jane Fonda, or I'd jump on the floor and bust out some push-ups from Herschel Walker. And my dad just saw me doing this for months. And he was like, yo, if you really are that committed, I'll work out with you. And that's really what got me going and doing anything that was athletic, was my dad.
And nobody realized we're fighting for world titles, jerking curtains for a guy from Australia and a dude from the Caucasus region. I would never open a show for a dude from Australia, just so you understand.
Why not?
Ever.
Why not? Why not?
That's not a combat-driven country. That's not real. You can't get a scholarship and go to a college for any combat form in Australia. It's not real.
I wanted to make this into what does it look like moving forward now with Travis Hunter, because the light went on, I think.
The two-way things, like, it's not off the table yet. The sky's not falling. Now the scoreboard reads one season-ending injury. I think if there's another season-ending injury next year, it's done. Maybe the silver lining is While he rehabs this knee and goes through this process, his body finally gets a rest.
What do you think could be the next NBA trend?
But I think you're going to see a lot more full court pressure from many teams in the league. So I'm interested to see that. Obviously, every year everybody talks about wanting to play faster, and sustaining that through 7 games, I think, is easier than being able to sustain it for 82. You're going to see a lot more backcourt pressure in our league this upcoming year. And I like to think that us as a group and the success we had last season will have a lot to do with that.
Oh, that's Stefanski. He's so hot right now. Can we just talk about the fact that Stefanski makes a great Owen Wilson? I mean, that is like, if Stefanski doesn't have his Halloween costume yet for this year, Caroline, we may have just identified it as the sexiest man on the market. Clearly.
Screw a Halloween costume. Kevin Stefanski, this is your sign right now immediately to start growing your hair out and dye it blonde. He looks amazing. Can you imagine him dressed like that on the sideline? Just slap a logo on that jacket. Done.
What if he comes in that exact outfit with that exact haircut for the introductory press conference, wherever he lands next? I'm in for this. Like, Stefanski comes in full Owen Wilson, and then we just let it go from there. I mean, I think this is we're on to something.
I would be so for it. I think it would definitely land better than Liam Cohen's Duval. So why not? I mean, like, hey, you win the people over, and then you get to identify the fans and media members that don't have a sense of humor. Always good to weed out, the fun suckers on day one. I totally 1000% support this. And you know what? Let this be my message to NFL coaches everywhere, that if you want to grow your hair out and bleach it blonde, go crazy. This is a no judgment zone. Let that freak flag fly and let that hair flow.
Let's see what 2026 now looks like for me. All right, Stefanski, hottest name out on the market right now, because everybody seems to be talking about him.
I think so. I feel like every coaching cycle is different, and there's like the cool, hot, sexy thing that everyone is looking for, that some coaching cycles look for that young up-and-coming coordinator. Some coaching cycles look for a certain coach from a certain coaching tree. I feel like this cycle, the sexy, hot thing right now, is coaches with proof of concept. That's the reason why Harbaugh was the first one off the board. I mean, I think we also have more coaches with proof of concept that are available in this coaching cycle than we've had in a very long time. I mean, the fact that Kevin Stefanski, John Harbaugh, and Mike Tomlin don't have jobs, I think is very, very telling. But I think there's also a lot of teams out there that do feel like they're currently constructed to win right now. They're in a place to win. I would say Atlanta has a roster to win, especially in that division. The Giants have a roster to win. Obviously, the Baltimore Ravens have a roster that's constructed to win. And the other side of that is you have young quarterbacks that you're wanting to develop, or in the Raiders' case, you have the number 1 overall pick and you want to develop that quarterback that you eventually take with the number 1 overall pick. You probably want someone with a proof of concept of developing young quarterbacks, or at least doing it before in the league. So I think for that, the amount of respect that I know Stefanski has all across the league, his proof of concept in this league is a 2-time coach of the year. I mean, he won a playoff game in Cleveland. It's the only one they've won in my entire lifetime. That's not easy to do in Cleveland. So yes, long story short, I think Kevin Stefanski, for his experience, is the hottest candidate out there outside of Harbaugh.
A couple of things.
Assuming Tomlin's not on the market, fair to say?
Right. I think that's fair. That's fair. I think that's a fair place to put it. Stefanski right now, he won 11 games twice for the Cleveland Browns, right? I know that there's been some bad in there, but he won 11 games twice. I went back and looked, as you know I love to do, all the way back to the 90s. And if you go all the way back to 1990, before Kevin Stefanski, the Browns won 11 games one time. One time, all the way up to Kevin Stefanski. They won 10 games one other time. So they have 2 double-digit win team seasons all the way back to 1990. So when we say Stefanski got fired in Cleveland, I think there needs to be some context of what success looks like. Also, Stefanski, for a second-time head coach, is still young. He's 43 years old. So you're talking about somebody that certainly is coming in with experience, has had success, has been a 2-time coach of the year, knows what he's doing from an offensive mindset. Think about the tone of the conversation around it, because Daboll gets fired in New York, and immediately we're saying, well, he's going to be an offensive coordinator somewhere. Mike McDaniel gets fired in Miami, and it's, well, he's probably going to take an OC job unless there's a perfect head coaching job that opens up. That's the way we're talking about a couple of the other well-respected offensive minds. There's been none of that conversation around Kevin Stefanski. It has been just presumed since the day that he was fired by Cleveland that he would be one of the most in-demand candidates, and every single team with an opening seems to want to talk to him for a reason. I think the league is telling you that they respect Kevin Stefanski as a head coach. And that, to me, Caroline, holds some weight. Just the way the tone of the conversation has been. We have to remember that one man's trash is another man's treasure. It's clear at this point that the league values Stefanski much more than the Browns do.
I think there's a very high likelihood that in the next 5 years, Kevin Stefanski is in a much better position than the Cleveland Browns are. I think there's a very high likelihood that Kevin Stefanski's win-loss record is significantly more favorable than it is in the Cleveland Browns. Because I've never viewed the issues in Cleveland, and believe me, there's a lot of them. I never viewed those issues as Kevin Stefanski issues. Now, when you win 3 or 4 games at the last couple of seasons, like, he's not blameless. Like, it's not like he's a sacred cow or, there's no fingers to be pointed at Kevin Stefanski. Of course not. That's not what I'm saying. But I think Cleveland has much, much, much bigger issues. Ownership, talent evaluation of the quarterback position, money, the amount of money that they have tied up in Deshaun Watson. Like, those are all much bigger issues and much bigger fish to fry in Cleveland than Kevin Stefanski ever was. Frankly, when Kevin Stefanski got fired in Cleveland, I thought, good for him. Because now he can start over in a much more well-run organization and show and prove to all of us how good of a coach he is. Because I do believe he's that good of a coach. But Fitz, where do you think he ends up? If he is the hottest coach on the market, where's he going to go?
I got it. All right, so hear me out. I'm going to set the scene for you, all right? A little setting here.
Oh, please.
You got a coach
I love this.
that is wildly respected, right? You got a coach that the league seems to tell you is a hot commodity. So now he wants to go somewhere that is stable. He wants to go somewhere with the quarterback. He wants to go somewhere, I would think, that maybe he has a pretty good idea of how they do business. And what if the place that he wants to go also has a pretty good idea of who he is because they've scouted his teams for several years? I'm putting Stefanski in Baltimore with Lamar. Suddenly the Baltimore Ravens know him better than most because they have gone against him a couple of times here, because they do know everything there is to know about an opponent. They all come together. Kumbaya, Stefanski in Baltimore. What do you think?
I don't hate it because I think Baltimore is the best job. I thought it was better than the Giants job. I think it's the best job available. Baltimore's tailor-made to win a Super Bowl next year. So that would make sense. Best available job goes to the best available coach. I do wonder, though, how that would fly hiring a coach within the division, specifically hiring a coach that came from the Cleveland Browns. I think Stefanski is better than the Cleveland Browns. And I'm sorry, Cleveland Browns fans, if that hurts your feelings, it's the truth. But I do think that there is a little bit of a certain element of winning the press conference that shouldn't be your number one concern, that should never be your number one concern. But if the Ravens move on from John Harbaugh after, 18 seasons and a Super Bowl and however many trips to the postseason, and then they hire the Cleveland Browns coach, I don't think it would be a bad move, but I do think it might be a difficult sell. So for that reason, I am not putting Stefanski in Baltimore. I have Robert Saleh taking that job. I think Kevin Stefanski would go to Atlanta. I know that Atlanta has the largest glaring hole that exists in the NFL. Atlanta doesn't have a quarterback unless Kevin Stefanski is absolutely positively head over heels in love with Michael Penix Jr. And maybe he is. We'll see. But I think Bijan Robinson is one of the most talented young players in the league. And you pair him with Drake London, one of the best young receivers in this league as well. And then you pair him with James Pierce on the defensive side of the ball. Like, Atlanta has some pieces now. Atlanta has some young pieces. I know they're missing the quarterback. That's an important one. But I think there's also value to the Atlanta job that they didn't just move on from Raheem Morris. They also moved on from Terry Fontenot. So what Kevin Stefanski can come into is a very synergistic, is that a word? Synergy between the GM and the head coach position. Synergy. Synergenetic?
No, I like this. And look, I don't know why I decided to go with that. What we do know, we don't know what Stefanski thinks of Michael Penix Jr. too. Like, I'm presuming that the Falcons don't have a quarterback. Maybe the coaches don't agree. So I think that I love the Atlanta pick by you for everything other than the quarterback. The only I'll give you this one other little Browns nugget. Remember, the Baltimore Ravens relocated from Cleveland to Baltimore, and then 5 years later won a Super Bowl, which Browns fans are still angry about because that was mostly their team that they watched. The most Browns thing in the world would be to fire your coach because he's not good enough, have him go to Baltimore, and in year one,
win a
Super Bowl.
That is so
the most
Cleveland.
Browns thing ever. That is like. But I hear you. I think Atlanta's also a great spot. The one thing I am sure of is Stefanski is going to get whatever Stefanski. Now that the Harbaugh domino has fallen, I think it's pretty fair to say that Stefanski's going to be the man.
Our producer Mike Goldfarb has a hunch. So Kevin Stefanski's dad works for the Phoenix Suns. Any chance Kevin Stefanski would take the Cardinals job to be closer to his dad?
Okay, well, I'm the wrong person to ask for that because you'd have to give me 10 times more money to live anywhere near my parents. And Phoenix is nice though, but like also it's like Stefanski, like you ain't getting a third shot at this thing. You think like it's so rare for a head coach to get 3 tries? I mean, I can't imagine. No matter how much you pick up the phone, you're like, "Pops, love you, buddy. I'm gonna make enough money that we can just charter a jet back and forth. You can just come see me all the time in Baltimore." Are you buying the Cardinals love here?
No, I just wanted to bring that up because our producer Mike has had a bee in his bonnet on that theory, and I love my family. I love my parents. I love my dad. I would not take the Arizona Cardinals job just to be closer to them. I would do anything to be closer to them. I wouldn't take that job.
Shout out to Mike Goldfarb, who does great work on this show. He's also got a massive theory that's now wrong that Ty Lue should have been fired. So what I want is Ty Lue to get fired from the Clippers and become the Cardinals head coach. And then we've got all the Goldfarb's theories coming together in one. All right, we'll keep breaking it down. We got to get to the next. Frank Schwab going to join us. We will figure out on the 15th anniversary of the day that it was said. We're going to do some can't wait on the divisional round preview.
Alex Golesh to Auburn. I got no clue if he's going to win there. I am irrationally excited, though, about Alex Golesh at Auburn. I know what works at Auburn. I grew up around Auburn. We've seen a whole lot of what doesn't work at Auburn, haven't we, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, we have. You don't even have to be an Auburn fan to shake your head. The difference is Auburn people are shaking their heads frowning, whereas LSU and Bama and Georgia folks are shaking their heads laughing.
I have a tweet that I want to read to you.
Yes.
Game 5 of last year, we lost to the Knicks. I didn't play very well. This was in New York. I came back, won Game 6, won Game 7. You tweeted, Tyrese Halliburton dilly-dallies around the perimeter too much on offense. Too much of a cone on defense. He needs to take this offseason to figure out who he wants to be.
That's too hard. Sometimes I get emotional.
If I change your mind, cool. That's part of being an athlete. I'm all game with it.
There was a guy named Tony Khan, the head of AEW. In a million years, I never would have thought this guy would come on. He hated me.
Wait, why? Because you guys had beef?
We had beef, big beef, yes.
Who do you not have beef with, Eric?
Not that many people, but the point is, when it's beef, it gets magnified. Okay, it gets magnified. But Tony came in, we shook hands, we made amends, we hugged, and all was good. That's what grown-ups do.
This new young generation coming into the NBA, like, what is the why for them wanting to do all these things off the court?
You know what I mean? For me, it's always been like, what is authentic to me? When you're making the money you're making from the NBA, and God bless us, we're blessed. So now you got guys saving and doing right by their money that they make from the league. So when you get off the floor, it's like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and just do what I want to do. May not be the big ticket financially that I want, but it's authentic to who I am and what I want to do.
15 years ago today, actually, the man in the middle of that picture gave us the moment we will never forget, where he stood on the sidelines with Sal Powell and Bart Scott said, Can't wait. It's something we brought into this show. It's something we do every time we love to preview a great weekend of action coming for us. We do what we love to call on this show a Bart or a fart. And it's really simple. If a game's great, if it's going to be epic, if it's beautiful, if you can't wait for it, we simply call it a Bart, and then you hear the sound effect.
Can't wait.
There we go. And if the game is not going to be as beautiful, maybe not as perfect, well, it's the opposite of a Bart, which obviously, because we're mature adults here, is a fart, in which case you hear this sound effect. Aggressive.
Ooh.
Still aggressive. So figure we'll do it with
Never
the NFL
gets
Divisional round. Here's the caveat. All right, let's be honest for a second. It's NFL playoff. It's all great. So we're really splitting hairs here, but we got to make some of them Barts and some of them farts, even amongst the elite. So let's break some of this down. Let's start with the Bills-Broncos. Okay, Bills-Broncos, Caroline Fenton. Bart or a fart?
Before we get into Bills-Broncos, Fitz, one thought. Is there a Bart Scott curse with the Jets? Because when Bart Scott said, can't wait, that was the last time anything good happened for the New York Jets.
Maybe the real answer here is gotta wait. The real answer is gotta wait. We can't wait for Frank Schwab. We're bringing Frank Schwab in. We're getting Frank in. Frank's joining us. All right, Frank, buddy. All right, here's the conceit. All right, this is our favorite segment we do on this show all the time. Bart or a fart, and all we got to do is decide if it's good or if it's bad. If it's good, it's a Bart. In which case, you hear Bart Scott say, "Can't wait." I can't wait to do this. If it's the opposite of a Bart, it's a fart, and if it's a fart, you get to hear this. Aren't you glad you picked today to come on YSD?
Yeah,
all right,
great.
so,
that's the reaction that I give every time Frank is.
Just
I know. These are all great games. I know they're all great games, but we still have to, within the margins of great games, we still got to figure out what's Barts and what's farts. So Bills Broncos. Frank is our guest. We will let you have the first crack at the sound effect. Is Bills Broncos a Bart or a fart?
I hope it's a Bart. I'll be there. I'm looking forward to that. So no, I think it's a great game. Look, it's your classic, like the quarterback with the Game of Thrones meme, you know, like he's basically taking on the entire world with just a sword. Like this is Josh Allen against the Broncos. And I hate the quarterback. Everything's quarterback centric. But in this case, like it really is. Like if you picking the Bills here, you're picking because Josh Allen and nothing else. The Broncos are so much better in every way. I want to see if Josh Allen can do it. And so this is a Bart. This is a really, really good game.
Can't wait.
This is the Bartiest Bart of all of the games that ever Barted. This is such a Bart. And Frank, I hope that you at least get to be a fan in this one.
No, I'm not a fan. No. I'll be up in the box, so I'll be working.
Okay.
And I'm not a Broncos fan anyway.
Warm.
But like, yes,
you'll be warm.
Yes.
What? You'll be warm. That's
I'll be warm. Yes.
That
yes.
is the important
warm.
part.
That'd be nice. Is that what? A crazy stat, by the way. This has nothing to do with anything. Broncos season ticket holders. I know, obviously, a few being out here in Colorado. They have not had a game yet this season that has been colder than like 62 degrees. We've had crazy weather here in Denver. It's been warm the entire time.
It's crazy.
And it's not even going to be that bad on Sunday or Saturday. I think it's going to mid 30s or something like that, which is, that's fine. Buffalo guys are like wearing shorts, you know?
Yeah, that's spring in Buffalo.
Yeah, look, we all agree this game's the Bartiest of the Barts. It's the best of the best. It's the best of the bunch. I'm really more obsessed now with like Frank, when you're in the press box, because look, the limited times I've been allowed in the press box, we all know I can't be professional. Do you take all of the food that you want, or are you polite at the food line? Because the media's food spread, I've heard at Mile High is pretty good.
I think I'm polite. I like to think I'm polite. Wow, now you got me worried. Like, am I the guy? Am I that guy? Like hoarding away 3 plates, putting them in my backpack for later. You know, like, oh, I can eat this tomorrow. Heat it up. Okay, cool. Again, I think I'm okay though. I think I'm polite.
Okay. Last time I was at the press box in Vegas, I think I took one of each of the desserts and stacked them in front of me. I got some side eye. All right, let's go to the next game. You know what? Like, Daddy got to eat. All right, Niners Seahawks. I just called myself Daddy. This segment has gone
too
off
early
the rails.
To be saying Daddy. Not even 10 a.m. on the East Coast.
No, it's too early in my life. Yes, way too early.
I'm a fart. I just deserve that. Niners Seahawks. Fred Warner not going to be activated. Sam Darnold suddenly questionable. Caroline, we'll let you go first on this one. Is this a Bart or a fart?
Am I allowed to call this one a fart? I know that doesn't feel right, but look, Sam Darnold is questionable for this game, and I know he said that there was a 0% chance that he wouldn't play in this game, but if we get a less than 100% Sam Darnold, then we know how banged up San Francisco is, and also we've seen this matchup twice before. Now, granted, the
Right.
2 times that we did see this matchup in the regular season, it was epic. And the last time they played in the final week of the season, everything was on the line. The number 1 overall seed, loser has to go on the road in the playoffs. But with all of that being said, we've seen this before. And it's just
all right,
kind of
Frank.
a big old 2
And it
teams that are all
wasn't
banged
great.
up.
Yeah, it's both of their games were kind of ugly. Yeah, really kind of just grinders, low scoring. And nobody's giving the 49ers a chance. I think the 49ers got a chance to keep it close, but of all the games that you might possibly be like, all right, the second half, I'm going to go clean out the garage. I'm going to take care of some of the stuff because I'm watching football all weekend, and usually that's not going to fly with the significant other. This is probably the game that gets out of hand. So, the Darnold thing, Darnold's going to play. We all know that. But oblique injuries, we talked to Kyle Van Noy yesterday on Inside Coverage. He was like, yeah, I had an oblique once. It lasted for 6 weeks. You can't get rid of it. Like, it is just there. It's more of a baseball thing where baseball guys never get over it. But football guys, I imagine with the torque you have as quarterback, not fun either. So I don't think Sam, if this is serious, I think Sam's going to be 100%. So unfortunately, it's a fart. It's got to be.
Yeah.
Frank, how did this happen?
I don't know. How did we get here? We got
He didn't
talking
play last
by the
week.
other guy.
He said he was throwing on air. And like it just sort of he felt something tweak. But Sam Darnold is going to be brought to you by Toradol for the next month of the playoffs.
Oh yeah,
So
and it's just that's one of those injuries. You can't brace it up. Even shooting it up, I don't know about that. Like it's just going to be there. He's just going to play through it. And less than 100% Sam Darnold might be turnover Sam. We might get that in the playoffs.
All right, what about Texans, Pats? Frank, what do you think on this one? Is this a Bart or a fart?
I think this is gonna be one for the purists. Like, I could foresee this game. Like, I think the over under is like what 38, maybe it's somewhere in there, 36. I can't even. It might not even get to 25. Like, I don't know how the Texans score, but I know their defense is coming. So I could see this being one of these 13-9 type of games. I really could, because no Nico Collins for the Texans. The Patriots are obviously very good on offense, very good on defense too, actually. But that Texans defense is unbelievable. Like, they are good. They remind me a lot of the 2015 Broncos, who just won a Super Bowl basically without an offense. They're just like, we got this. Don't worry. We'll score if we need to. Peyton, you can ride into the sunset. We'll just carry you there. And they really did. So I just see this as a really, really low scoring game. I think it's going to be interesting, but not exactly the most prolific of the games. So I guess just to try, like, all 4 of these games I really like, but just for Fitz, just trying to humor him a little bit. I'll go with a fart on this one.
Yeah. Caroline?
One for the purists is just French for gross. So I'm with you here on this, Frank. I think the idea of this game is a Bart, right? It's strength on strength. It's Drake May, the potential MVP in this Patriots offense, against the Texans defense that's probably the best remaining unit in the entire playoff field. Like, the idea of it is so fun. But I think in actuality, it's going to be a fart. Because it's going to be that. It's going to be like a 10-3 kind of game. It's going to be so grinded out. It's going to be so low scoring. It's also probably going to be gray and cold and probably snowy in New England. So it's a fart.
Wait, you said that we said the over under on this is 40.5? 40? I might have to leave for a minute here. I'll be back in a couple minutes. I'll come back to talk about Bears Rams in a few. Like, wow, 40.5, unless the defenses are scoring that, which possible. We saw Texans do it last week.
You're right. I saw 40.5. I thought the same thing. I'm like, oh man, that feels like. I'll say this: you guys are both right. This game is definitely a fart, and this is like one of those like. You fart, and then like every time you leave the room and you walk back into the room, you're reminded of it, but you can't get away from it. You're still you're sitting in it.
God.
That's what this is going to be for 3 hours.
Graphic.
3 hours. Well, I'm just here to help.
That's what happens when you have 5 desserts at a Raiders game, I guess.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm a temple now. All right, how about the Rams Bears? We'll save this one for last. The Rams Bears, 0 degrees. Some are saying that it's going to be negative wind chill when this thing kicks off. What do you think, Frank? Bart or a fart?
I like this one. I think this is I think it's perhaps the game of the weekend. I've been saying this. The Rams are beatable. If you go back, I'm going to go back a month. There's a lot of football. They blew it against the Seahawks. They lost to the Falcons. They barely beat the Cardinals. I know they pulled away at the end, but the Cardinals led that game with a minute to go in the third quarter, and the Cardinals are terrible. Barely beat the Carolina Panthers. That's a month of football where they have not played like a Super Bowl favorite. And here you got this Bears team, which turns everything into a circus, which makes sure everybody is entertained. Like they must feel like they're making blockbuster movies or something, because they're like, we got to make it interesting for the people, right? We just can't just win. We gotta fall behind 21-3 before Caleb saves the day and we win in the last minute. So they're going to pull their end of the deal as far as making this entertaining. I think the Bears offense matches up well against the Rams and their secondary, which is their weakness. I think this is going to be a really, really good game to finish a weekend. It's a Bart all the way. This might be the Bartiest. I might go with this one over Bills Broncos as best game of the week.
This is such a Bart. It's a cold Bart, but it is a Bart nonetheless. And I love this matchup because I keep going back and forth in my head about who I want to pick in this game. Because like you just said, Frank, the Rams have not played a particularly inspiring brand of football over the last month. It came down to the wire against the Carolina Panthers, a team that had zero business even being in the game with the Rams. And then you add in Stafford's finger injury that he did not look the same against the Panthers after that happened. And then you add on top of the fact that it's at Soldier Field and you have a 37-year-old quarterback who's banged up with back problems in the snow when it's 0 degrees. But then at the same time, I'm thinking like the Rams aren't this team. The Rams are more talented than the Bears. The Rams have more experience than the Bears. Coaching staff and the players. So I go back and forth with this game, and for that reason, the fact that I just can't even put my finger on it, the fact that I expect fireworks and magic and weird kind of juju makes this such a Bart.
Yeah, I think you're right. This might actually be the biggest Bart of the weekend. And Frank, something only you and I will understand. This is a frozen Bart, like the ice cream 80s WWE sandwiches where they had the little wrestlers on it. I'm eating a frozen ice cream Bart Scott sandwich. That's what I'm doing. It's a frozen Bart, but I'll take it. Also,
it's like the bubblegum eyeballs.
Who doesn't love weather games? Like that's with all these teams moving to domes. Come on, stop that. Like
I don't love weather games. I don't want to sit in the cold or the snow. I'm
talking about sitting in them. You're going to be in your living room, sipping hot cocoa.
When I watch in my living room, 100%. Yeah, the electric blanket is on. I'll love it.
Give me a roof. Frank, before we let you go real quick, we got to get your Bart or fart on the most important thing yet. Bart or fart on Giannis booing the crowd that booed him as our resident Bucks fan. Bart or fart on Giannis booing the crowd back.
I can't go against my guy Giannis. I'll Bart him.
Can't wait.
But I'm not against it. Look, the fans, they were down 40 to the Timberwolves at the half, and the Timberwolves didn't even have Ant Edwards. Come on. But that picture of Giannis booing back, it's probably going to be the one that gets shared 8 million times when he inevitably gets traded, saying, see, he hates Milwaukee. Like, we told you for 9 years, every single day since he became most improved player, that he's going to get traded. Here's the proof that he hates Milwaukee. But that's fine. Like, they're frustrated. Then they go out and get blown out by 40 against the Spurs last night. He should have been. I want to Photoshop this where Giannis is booing Doc Rivers. Can we get that? And Doc Rivers, and maybe getting the thumb going the other way of heave ho. Like, let's get out of here, Doc, because this team is flailing right now. But Giannis, that's fine. I forgive you for everything.
This team
we
stinks.
Photoshopped him as Macho Man yesterday because it's a full heel turn for Giannis. I love it. You guys can obviously read him across Yahoo Sports. Watch Inside Coverage. Great show. Frank doing God's work there. Frank, have a great weekend, brother. Appreciate you hanging out with us.
Appreciate you guys. We'll do. Enjoy the games.
Thank you, Frank.
Coming up next, speaking of the NBA, on target or on something? Some of the hot takes across the league. We'll give them to you next.
Perhaps you would be expecting me to say, nice to meet you, but we've actually met once before, Vince. Getting to be backstage at a wrestling event. Kurt Angle took a liking to me for some reason, and he introduced me to you. We were sitting outside having lunch, and he said, hey, this is Ariel. The only thing I remember you saying was, what are you, some kind of smart mark? What are you, some kind of internet fan? And then that was it. I was like, holy, and I remember calling my friend like, I think Vince Russo just insulted me. This is incredible.
People got on me when I talked about Ohtani, and I saw him play one inning of one baseball game when I was still playing, and I looked at Luis Severino. I said, this is the best baseball player I've ever seen in my life. He's the biggest, he's the fastest, he's the strongest. He hits the ball the furthest. He throws the ball the hardest. Like, he is really, incredible. I mean, he really shows up in these big moments, and it's just incredible to be able to watch him do his thing, man.
Every Sunday I'll have the thought, how on earth could a Titans fire Mike Vrabel? Mike Vrabel is one of the best coaches in the NFL and always has been. He's always gotten the most out of his talent. The New England Patriots making it back to the Super Bowl, just 6 years after Tom Brady leaves, when everybody was just dunking on the Patriots and, oh my goodness, Patriots are dead. And them making it back to the Super Bowl would be alternately cool and pretty fun to see everybody lose their minds over.
I always think somewhere somebody's watching their first college football game in person or on TV, and any given game could be that game. This was someone's first college football game yesterday. This person is set up for crushing disappointment the rest of the way, because eventually they're going to watch Rutgers. Northwestern games are going to happen to you. So just prepare. It's okay. You got to let the bad with the good in. That's all.
Anthony Black, are you kidding me? Watch this dunk, all right, as he comes up the court. All right, here we go. Not one, not two, not three, not four of you can stop me. All of you can sit down because, my God, Anthony Black just absolutely goes up for this. I could watch this all day. Just the fact that he accelerates there, pushes through, four guys collapsing on him, and still manages to dunk on every single one of them. Caroline, did we just witness on is this the dunk of the year? We're going to do on target or on something. So we're going to take some of the biggest hot topics in the NBA. We're going to figure out on target. Yeah, that's right. Or on something, like you're on something. So most outrageous, incredible dunk of the year in the NBA, 1v4. Is that on target or is that on something?
You are on target there. Look at that. Look at that. That is a man dragging four grown men through the air. Like, when you put it in a still frame like that, I think just adds to the context how impressive that is. Was there the razzle dazzle and the kind of, NBA dunk contest tricks? No, but look at that. Just pure and utter power, pure and utter posterizing happening with four grown men. I need the Twitter account Art But Make It Sports. I need Art But Make It Sports to have its art rendition here if they haven't already, because that is epic. We don't see things like that every single day in this league.
You have just talked. This is on target, best dunk of the year, and also you've talked me into what they need to do to actually make the slam dunk contest watchable. They need to put 1 on 5. Can you get a dunk up in any sort? 1 on 5. I'm in on this. Anthony Black, dunk of the year. All right, so let's take a look at some of the other topics running around the NBA and figure out on target or on something. And this one, we'll go to Alex Caruso. Thunder guard was talking about Victor Wembanyama. We love Wemby on this show. His quote, offensively, he's still really raw. His length is an issue, but he's not as strong as Giannis, like a Jokic, Shungan, KD even. That's something you have to use to your advantage. So, Wemby, still really raw. Caruso, on target or on something?
I struggle with this one because he's not wrong. I mean, look, Wemby is still very young. Wemby's only in year 2 of the NBA, and it still really kind of feels like year 1 because he was out for so much of last year, and he's been out for a decent bit of this year as well. So, yes, Wemby's still raw. I think we can, just acknowledge that even with the greatness that we've seen of Wemby. But this also just feels like a very weird thing for him to say. It just feels like a strange thing to talk about, the rawness of Victor Wembanyama in a press conference. I can't really put my finger on exactly why I think it's weird. It just feels kind of strange, maybe a little corny to say in a post-game press conference, but he's also not wrong when he says that. So I think he's just on a little bit of something, maybe like an Advil or some NyQuil perhaps. Nothing crazy.
Baby aspirin.
Look,
I think he's on target to a certain extent, but it's not necessarily about his game. It's more just about the body and the growth of his body. I found it funny that in this quote, he specifically referenced Giannis. I would challenge anybody to go back and look at pictures of what Giannis looked like when he came to the NBA versus what Giannis looks like now that he has been training as an NBA player for so long, right? There's just a portion, and you can see a difference in Wemby's body now versus when he got into the league too. He's just got to fill out a little bit. So I do think that he's on target, that he's still raw to his full potential, which is only scarier for everybody that loves him. Also, what do we think on Wemby's new shaved head? I'm all in on this. Like, look, if you can rock a shaved head, then you rock a shaved head. I'm all in on this. Like, I think it's fun. Like, I'm a big believer. If you shave it, grow it, come back. Like, I don't care either way. Like, I love a little adventure.
I was the one that just told Kevin Stefanski to grow his hair out and bleach it blonde. So I am not going to be the person to tell Victor Wembanyama that he cannot let his head breathe a little bit. Let that skin show. Go crazy. I think it looks nice.
I'm all in. All right, let's get to the next take then, on target or on something for the Clippers. The Clippers are the hottest team in the NBA right now, winners of 11 of their last 13. The Clippers are all the way back, on target or on something.
No, you're on something. All the way back. Let's pump the brakes, people. I don't want to take away from this winning streak that they've been on, or at least these winning ways, because they haven't just been beating up on the bad teams. They've beaten the Lakers in that stretch. They've beaten the Rockets in that stretch. They've beaten the Pistons twice in that stretch. That's not nothing. But to say that they are all the way back, I'm going to need a whole lot more of proof of concept, because it was not that long ago that I was saying, fire Ty Lue, trade everyone, blow it up. This thing is a mess. The Clippers are an absolute dumpster fire. So yes, winning heals a lot of things, but in order to heal all, I think they're going to have to win just a little bit more. So I want to give credit to the Clippers where credit is due, but all the way back, let's have them prove that to us.
Yeah, I got to make it on something too, because all the way back, they've won 11 of 13. They sit at 17 and 23. They dug themselves in such a hole that what does all the way back actually mean, right? Like, so I don't think they were as bad as they looked early in the season. I'm not sure they're as good as they look right now. But what I am sure of is that they're going to have to fight tooth and nail all season long through the grind of a regular season when teams like Oklahoma City are trying to figure out how to stay motivated. The Clippers won't have that luxury. They're going to have to keep the absolute hammer down all year long. That's asking a lot. So I think they're on something 100%. Like I love the redemption arc of what this could be, but still I want to remind everybody that whatever we mean by all the way back, there's just some element of all the way back in the sense that they can compete with Oklahoma City eventually, or San Antonio eventually, or Denver eventually. I do not believe that they can beat any of the top 4 teams in the West in a 7-game series. So they're all the way back to at least being relevant, and I don't think they're going to blow everything up, but I also don't think they're all the way back like they're on the verge of an NBA championship. All right, plenty to break down. We are only days away from the College Football National Championship. Coming up next, Jay Busbee going to join us. We'll get Busbee's thoughts on the entire climate in college football and on a game Monday we cannot wait for.
And I didn't have any gym equipment. I didn't live near a gym. So I would watch TV, and every commercial break, I'd jump on the floor and bust out some leg lifts from Jane Fonda, or I'd jump on the floor and bust out some push-ups from Herschel Walker. And my dad just saw me doing this for months. And he was like, yo, if you really are that committed, I'll work out with you. And that's really what got me going and doing anything that was athletic, was my dad.
And nobody realized we're fighting for world titles, jerking curtains for a guy from Australia and a dude from the Caucasus region. I would never open a show for a dude from Australia, just so you understand.
Why not?
Ever.
Why not? Why not?
That's not a combat-driven country. That's not real. You can't get a scholarship and go to a college for any combat form in Australia. It's not real.
I wanted to make this into what does it look like moving forward now with Travis Hunter, because the light went on, I think.
The two-way things, like, it's not off the table yet. The sky's not falling. Now the scoreboard reads 1 season-ending injury. I think if there's another season-ending injury next year, it's done. Maybe the silver lining is, well, he rehabs this knee and goes through this process. His body finally gets a rest.
What do you think could be the next NBA trend?
but I think you're going to see a lot more full court pressure from many teams in the league. So I'm interested to see that. Obviously, every year everybody talks about wanting to play faster, and sustaining that through 7 games, I think, is easier than being able to sustain it for 82. You're going to see a lot more backcourt pressure in our league this upcoming year. And I like to think that us as a group and the success we had last season will have a lot to do with that.
Alabama retains the #1 ranking, and the SEC remains dominant, ... in Nielsen viewership of college football. Jay Busbee out there reminding everybody that we know, and these markets are important when we take a look at the way everybody feels about this, but Ty Simpson not going to be back for the Tide to cheer on or to watch on their TVs. He remains committed to the draft, even though he got a ton of huge offers. Busbee, are you surprised at all that Ty is in the NFL draft and didn't decide to come back and take one of these home run offers?
Yeah, I mean, Ty Simpson is like the last throwback, isn't he? He's the last guy that's going to ever wait for 2 or 3 years behind a starter in order to get the starting job at the university that he wanted to go to. He was a Saban recruit. That's how long he's been at Alabama. He's the last guy that's ever going to wait that long and not jump to another starting spot. And he's probably the only guy who's not going to go and take a massive NIL deal instead of jumping to the NFL in an uncertain future. I mean, we're going to have to see where things go with NIL, but it's getting to the point where a 1-year NIL deal is getting close to the lower edge of a first-round NFL deal for rookies. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that he did it. You know, it kind of here or there as to whether he's going to be a quality NFL quarterback, but I'm not surprised based on, you know, his own personal honor code that he decided to stick with his word and not go to Miami or somewhere else.
I'm old enough to remember when that's what all the quarterbacks did. They sat and they waited their turn, and then they came out after year 3 and they didn't transfer. New world that we're living in college football, no doubt. But I feel like we're burying the lead here. The reason why we know that Ty Simpson got all of these offers from Miami, from Ole Miss, so on and so forth, because he literally came out and said it. But it was before he had declared for the NFL draft. Busbee, that's tampering. That is clear and obvious tampering that Ty Simpson is admitting to. How do we fix this in college football? Do we?
I am shocked. I am shocked to hear that colleges might not respect deadlines and might actually try to circumvent rules and try to get players on their team through the distribution of assets in a way that they wouldn't otherwise do. Yeah, I mean, the tampering rule, obviously, we see that everywhere in every kind of sport, and tampering can be as unsophisticated as meeting a guy in a parking lot with a McDonald's bag full of 10 grand, or it can be as sophisticated as, you know, just happen to ride an elevator up with a player's representative and just happen to make some casual conversations. So, yeah, I mean, it's very, very tough. This is one of the millions of things that college football has to figure out how to either fix, get guidelines on, get restrictions, or at least just at the basic level, get some guidance there. Because, again, you know, we've used the words wild, wild west. How many times have we used that with college football over the last 4 or 5 years? It still applies. There's still gunfighters. There's still madness. There's still lawless territory out here. And this is yet another way that we're seeing how this plays out.
So, Busbee, I know that to many of our peers over the last several years, I've been the guy in the corner of the room that's pushing my glasses up saying, actually, everything's just fine. Everybody keeps telling me college football's broken. I'm like, it's just fine. So yesterday, I'm scrolling through Twitter X, and I see the Tennessee Athletics, they put out a tweet, reached an eye-opening $304 million in revenue in 24-25, which was its largest surplus in recent memory. So for everybody that keeps telling me that this isn't sustainable, college sports are going to die, all of this is going to blow up, I'm watching Tennessee make record money. Is this sort of proof that there is a counter argument to all of that?
College sports is going to be fine. It's just a matter of where the money is going. I mean, you're right. The people say unsustainable. You know, maybe yes, maybe no. It's the question of where the money is going, whose pockets is going into. And obviously right now it's going into the athletic department's pockets. It's going into the players' pockets. They're doing just fine. It's a lot of the old school power brokers, a lot of the old school people who had access to money that don't have as much now, bowl directors, that kind of thing. So the money is still there. The money is flowing in tidal waves. It's just going to different pockets now. And so the people that are complaining that college sports is broken, that it's unsustainable, they tend to be the ones who are losing out on this in this scenario. It's going to be fine. There's going to be college sports. They might look different from a professional versus amateur perspective, but college sports isn't going anywhere.
Speaking of quarterbacks, we heard Dante Moore will be returning to Oregon, even though he was the projected number 2 overall pick, even though he would be guaranteed in the area of about $50 million to declare for the NFL. He is heading back to Oregon. I think he's just one of many examples of talented players that are opting to come back to college instead of declaring for the NFL draft. Could this be an issue for the amount of talent that's available, not just in this upcoming NFL draft, but in the future?
I mean, I think the talent will get there eventually. It's kind of a question of how ready the talent is when they get into the NFL. I mean, you see this much more in the NBA than in the NFL. I mean, remember back, speaking of I can remember days when we would have high school seniors coming out and declaring for the NFL draft. Some of them were very ready. As a fellow still playing in the league that was a high school senior that declared for the draft. Some of them were not ready at all and they were completely forgotten. The market and the league has a way of sort of sorting this kind of thing out. I think that Dante Moore, in the terms of professional development, I think he made the right choice. I don't think he was ready from a developmental sense. In a financial sense, it's kind of tough to turn your back on $50 million guaranteed there. So that's the tricky part that a player has to weigh, is whether they want to take that money early or whether they potentially want to set themselves up for a longer term future. And so, I mean, you asked me what I would do if I was his agent. I'd say jump to the NFL. If I was his father, I'd probably say, hang around and get yourself ready for a longer term career.
That's well said by you for that perspective. All right, the Natty, 72 hours away. All right.
Yes.
I cannot wait
At
for
last.
every single second of this. Fine. Yeah, we've been waiting forever. I could spend an hour talking about how much I hate the playoff schedule. But let's talk about this actual game. What's the one most fascinating storyline to you in this Monday night matchup?
I mean, it's been so overtold, but it's the age of Indiana's team. The way that this is a team that's a lot closer to the Packers or to the Titans in terms of average age than they are to the rest of the Big Ten. It's the way that they have put together this team, and it's a group of lowercase p professionals, in that they professional in the sense that they know what they have to do. They know how to do their job. What I was most impressed with, I was at the game, the Peach Bowl the other night in Atlanta, and beyond, outside of the crowds, which were unbelievable. And I've never heard anything that loud in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. What I was most impressed with was how Indiana was always in the right place at the right time. Fernando Mendoza goes and fumbles a football. Who's right behind him? Pat Coogan right there to pick up the fumble right on a bounce. I mean, it was just the kind of discipline that you rarely see in a college team for any number of reasons. And the fact that Indiana is all pulling in the same direction, firing in the same direction, whatever cliche you want to use, that to me is the sign of a well-coached, well-disciplined, well-prepared team. And it's going to be tough for Miami to match up with that.
Pat Coogan, by the way, Rose Bowl MVP. I don't know how
Yes.
many times I've seen an offensive lineman be the MVP of a playoff game, but that's, I think, so indicative of this Indiana team. They are so disciplined. They are so tough on the lines of scrimmage. And I always view football in general, NFL college football, it's a copycat league. So whatever teams are having success, everyone else in the country wants to try and recreate that. Well, Indiana's in the national championship game and an 8.5-point favorite with a bunch of transfers from JMU and a quarterback from Cal and not a single 5-star on the roster. I don't even think Indiana was in the top 30 of NIL spending. Is what Curt Cignetti is doing at Indiana. Can you replicate that?
I mean, the problem is it's like trying to replicate a 25-year-old bottle of Pappy Van Winkle, in 3 years. You can't do it. The level of discipline and the level of commitment that you have to get, the level of buy-in from players for a length of time, and you can't turn an 18-year-old into a 22-year-old in one season. That kind of seasoning has to take time. So, I mean, there will absolutely be attempts to try to replicate this from the way that Cignetti runs his program, the very Saban-esque style. But as we've seen with all of the coaches that have flamed out trying the Belichick way, it's not so easy to replicate a program just based on style. So, yeah, it's going to take time and it's going to take patience. And that's what's going to frustrate a lot of athletic departments who say, look what happened in Indiana 2 years ago. They were nothing. Now they're in the national championship game. Do that for us. And it's not that easy to replicate. They're going to try, but it's going to be tough to do.
Do you believe Indiana can continue to replicate this method to continue to be as good as they are?
Yeah, I mean, that's the tricky part, isn't it? You can't sneak up on anybody at this point, but I think that success in college football breeds success. And if you're a known commodity, people want to come to start to play with you. What they're going to have to do is figure out how to navigate that system that we were just talking about, where, all right, you want to come play for us and you're a quality player, that's great, but you're going to sit behind these other players that have been here a couple of years already. Are you willing to do that? And if Cignetti can convince players to sit for a year or two and then take their opportunity the way that Saban used to, then yeah, absolutely, they can keep this going. That's a tall ask, though, in this era of NIL.
As we preview this game, I feel like so much of our conversations and conversations being had everywhere are so dominated by Indiana. And look, rightfully so. It's something that we've never seen before in this sport. But I also want to acknowledge there was a large fraction of people who didn't even think that Miami belonged in the college football playoff. And now here they are in the national championship game after taking down the big bad Ohio State Buckeyes and the red hot Ole Miss Rebels and going to Kyle Field and beating Texas A&M in the first round of the postseason. What has been most impressive to you about this run that the Canes have been on?
They have the fact that they lost those 2 games in the middle of the season and they got written off. And that was all of our fault, because in college football, as in the NFL, we are a week-to-week sort of analysis. You know, the Eagles win a game and they're great. The Eagles lose a game and suddenly they're out of it completely. And we tend to do that with all of these teams. And we did it with Miami in the sense that they lost 2 games. We're like, that's it. They're out of the ACC championship hunt. They're not going to make the playoff. They barely sneak in there at the end. This was still a very, very, very good team, and they were a good team all the way around. Carson Beck managed to not lose games for his team, and I phrased it that way because that's how he's done. When they win, he doesn't lose it for them. He's not necessarily a dynamic passer because bad things tend to happen when he starts slinging the ball too much, but he played within himself. They've got an array of playmakers there that can swarm to the ball, that can make the kind of catches and runs that you sing songs about years later. So they've sort of flown under the radar for all of us because there were so many other teams with more sparkling records that we could focus on, whether it might be Oklahoma or Alabama or Georgia, whoever it might be. And then there's Miami just kind of lurking down there under the surface. And so the fact that they were able to stick around, in retrospect, it's not all that surprising, but at the time we weren't paying attention to it.
Now, Jay, you wrote a story on Yahoo about the ticket prices. What did you unearth on this? Because everybody, look, as somebody that sat for hours waiting for Bruno Mars tickets only to be sticker shocked by those, what have you uncovered that we can all find for the
Bruno Mars?
Yeah, that's a whole that's a whole separate subject. We need to dig into it another time there, Fitz. Anyway, I looked just before I came on here. The average price to get in the door is, per our friends at Game Time, over $3,000 now. I mean, it's just to get in the door with one ticket is $3,000. That is immense. It's well over $1,000 over the point it was, about $1,500 more than this point last year for the Ohio State Notre Dame. I mean, it's the kind of thing where it seems like it is magnified, obviously because of Indiana's well-traveled fan base and because, Miami does not have very far to go to this game. So the combination of factors. But I think that what that speaks to is the fact that the national championship game is going to continue to escalate, much like a Super Bowl, where it's going to be out of the reach of normal fans. It's going to be out of the reach of people who want to just go and grab a ticket to the game. And, 4 figures is going to be the starting price for this kind of thing. So it's only going to get more and more expensive to attend this actual game.
All right, Jay, we do something on this show called Next Week's Headlines Today, where we like to look into our crystal ball and predict what's going to happen in the sports world. So for you, Tuesday's headline, after the national championship game on Monday morning, the headline reads what?
South Beach swarmed with bodies of dead drunks celebrating Indiana fans. That's what I'm going with. I think that Indiana is going to take it. I think that the Indiana fans are going to be all over South Beach, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun for everybody except Miami, of course.
Yeah,
this is it's electric. I know I can't wait for it. It's going to be a wild environment. You guys can obviously read them across Yahoo Sports. Jay Busbee, we appreciate your time, my friend. Thanks for your insight. Enjoy the game. It's going to be amazing.
Always, my friends. Take care.
That's great.
Appreciate
stuff
you, Jay.
Speaking, we got his headline. We'll give you our headlines coming up. What are the Monday headlines going to look like? Shocking one on him. We'll tell you about it next.
Alex Golesh to Auburn. I got no clue if he's going to win there. I am irrationally excited, though, about Alex Golesh at Auburn. I know what works at Auburn. I grew up around Auburn. We've seen a whole lot of what doesn't work at Auburn, haven't we, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, we have. You don't even have to be an Auburn fan to shake your head. The difference is Auburn people are shaking their heads frowning, whereas LSU and Bama and Georgia folks are shaking their heads laughing.
I have a tweet that I want to read to you.
Yes.
Game 5 of last year, we lost to the Knicks. I didn't play very well. This was in New York. I came back, won Game 6, won Game 7. You tweeted, Tyrese Halliburton dilly-dallies around the perimeter too much on offense. Too much of a cone on defense. He needs to take this offseason to figure out who he wants to be.
That's too hard. Sometimes I get emotional.
If I change your mind, cool. That's part of being an athlete. I'm all game with it.
There was a guy named Tony Khan, the head of AEW. In a million years, I never would have thought this guy would come on. He hated me.
Wait, why? Because you guys had beef?
We had beef, big beef, yes.
Who do you not have beef with, Eric?
Not that many people, but the point is, when it's beef, it gets magnified. Okay, it gets magnified. But Tony came in, we shook hands, we made amends, we hugged, and all was good. That's what grown-ups do.
This new young generation coming into the NBA, like, what is the why for them wanting to do all these things off the court?
And I mean, for me, it's always been like, what is authentic to me? When you're making the money you're making from the NBA, and God bless us, we're blessed. So now you got guys saving and doing right by their money that they make from the league. So when you get off the floor, it's like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and just do what I want to do. May not be the big ticket financially that I want, but it's authentic to who I am and what I want to do.
Extra, read all about it. It is time for Monday headlines, but we're going to do them today, all right? We're giving it to you in advance. So this is your chance where we can turn around and we can take a look at some of what we think is going to happen over the course of the weekend and sell you some newspapers. So let's see. I'll go first here, Caroline. I'm ready for this one. All right, here's your headline. Going to go with a little bit of NBA action. The headline has, Here's Johnny, which you could take as The Tonight Show or you could take as The Shining, either one. We've gone Shining. Kuminga to the Lakers. Jonathan Kuminga gets traded to the Lake Show over the weekend. He's demanded the trade. The Warriors know that they got to blow everything up. The Lakers are in need of some depth. They need some perimeter work. Kuminga seems like he could be a fit. They can make it match. I can figure out all the money. What do you think? Here's Johnny Kuminga to the Lakers.
I love the idea of it. But my question is, what are the Lakers realistically willing to give up right now? Are the Lakers right now in a position, as they're looking ahead to life without LeBron James, are they in a position to give up tangible assets right now? Now, it might be in a position too where they don't have to give up, future draft picks for Jonathan Kuminga, or they don't have to give up what they feel like is, their most valuable trade assets right now. But that is my question about the Lakers, is how active do we expect them to be at this trade deadline? Now that we're 2 weeks? 2 weeks and some change away from the trade deadline? Are they in a position to trade away tangible assets when they are still keeping an eye on the future? Obviously not a rebuild. As long as you have Luka in the building, you're not quote unquote rebuilding, but they will be retooling once they look ahead to life after LeBron James. So I do not hate this, especially considering because Jonathan Kuminga's contract is up next season. The Lakers wouldn't be committed to Jonathan Kuminga long term. It could just be a piece that they have in the short term.
Well, they can give up some expiring stuff to Golden State, which will help them because they can essentially get out of it. I hear you. I think just being brutally honest, the most likely scenario in my mind is that the Lakers make a move that will make everybody feel a little bit better about the Lakers, but won't make the Lakers better than Oklahoma City or San Antonio.
The old Jerry Jones.
They were active enough. I mean, yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. It feels like we're just expecting something, and maybe my expectations are too low for the trade deadline in general coming up in a couple of weeks. I just feel like Kuminga to the Lakers moves the needle just enough that the Lakers can say they did something. The Warriors can get rid of somebody that doesn't want to be there, and it won't really change the way either of their seasons actually end up. What do you got for me? Give me a Monday headline today.
I'm going to the world of the NFL, obviously divisional round weekend coming up this weekend. Very, very excited about it. The headline on Monday reads, Bills bounced McDermott, McDone. They're sending him
that's
to
a good headline.
McDonald's. And he's going to be putting fries in bags. We love our McDonald's workers, but he's going to be out in Buffalo after the Bills get bounced at Mile High Stadium. Are you buying what I'm selling?
Look, this one gets really chaotic. And by the way, I'm buying the headline. Just Bills bounce, McDermott, McDone. You've used alliteration. You've given me a little outfit on the Photoshop, which I love.
It's
and
a cutie
just
little
intriguing
apron.
enough that I have to go out and get the paper. So you've done your job. You've sold me the newspaper. This would be so chaotic to me. And I would love to say that I can't see a world because I don't think McDermott should be fired. I would love to say that I can't see a world where that happens. But I don't know. I mean, if they go into Denver and they just get boat raced, how is the fan base going to feel? Is there going to be some conversation about it? And then what's it mean? You'd be late getting to the cycle to even try and hire a replacement. Like, are there going to be teams, for example, if you think Stefanski might be a hot candidate for the Bills, do you need to move on Stefanski before the weekend because you just want to make sure that he doesn't have another option? Wildly, I can't believe we're saying that. So I think it would put the Bills late into the hiring cycle, McDermott late into trying to figure out where he's going to go next. That's kind of crazy. I can't rule it out because I think you're right. There's just enough smoke around this constantly. It just depends on what this game looks like. If they get just boat raced by the number 1 seed in the AFC, I don't think that should be a big deal compared to his job status, but I'm not sure Bills fans will agree. So I think you might actually be on to something. All right, so we'll stick in the NFL. I'll give you an NFL headline. What do you think of this one? All right,
okay.
We'll stick with cold weather games. We'll go with this. How about this? Hands off. Ben wins again. So this is the scenario.
Ooh.
Ben gets the win. The Bears get the win. But it's so cold that nobody wants to take off any gloves, so there's no handshake. And then we get the second time. Now it becomes a thing. Now Ben can't really shake anybody's hand because that might be the juju that's helping them win games. So it's not just the hands off. It's not just that the Bears win. It's the hands off, no handshake afterwards. Ben Johnson continues this sort of like gruff, I'm angry thing at midfield after wins.
I'm scary. So no handshake, no shirt. That's just the Ben Johnson uniform. That's just the Ben Johnson way. Look, I don't hate this by you. I do think I agree. Which has been so hard for me because I've been banging on the table for the Rams all season long. I've been like a ride or die Rams person, which is shocking considering I'm from St. Louis. But that's how much I believe in this team. So I have a hard time thinking that the experience of Sean McVay, the experience of Matthew Stafford is going to get beat by second-year Caleb Williams and first-year head coach Ben Johnson. But I can't ignore the home field advantage at Soldier Field. I can't ignore the magic, the juju, the feel-good Disney Channel original movie kind of vibe that this Bears team has. So I will be 0% surprised if the Bears do, in fact, winning this game. So I think I have to agree with you. I think I buy into this headline. Now, I do think Ben Johnson probably needs to get back to the handshaking ways. We're not going to make this a thing for the second week in a row, but, hey, wouldn't put it past him.
What if Ben Johnson has heated gloves? Like I found this when I moved to Connecticut. I found the sensation of heated gloves. And then now it's weird. Like, what if one coach might have heated gloves, the other coach might not have heated gloves. And then you go to shake hands and you realize, wow, his hands were warm and clammy. Mine are still frozen. So
frigid.
Maybe he just doesn't want to let on that he's actually comfortable on the sideline because his jacket's heated and his hat's heated and his gloves are heated and maybe his socks are heated.
And maybe they don't even shake hands. Maybe Sean McVay comes in for a big old bear hug because Ben Johnson's heated jacket is so warm. And little Sean from Los Angeles is just so chilly on the Chicago sideline. That'd be very precious.
I'm a hugger. All right, give me your headline. What do you got?
All right, I'm going to stick in the world of Bears-Rams. Frostbitten Stafford puts his career on ice. Look how cold he is. Little Jack Frost. Little Stafford Frost. If we just got done talking about all these reasons why we feel confident in the Bears being able to win this game, and how Lady Luck happens to be on the Bears sideline every single Sunday. If that does come to fruition this weekend against the Rams, and the Rams do get bounced in the playoffs, I wouldn't be shocked to see Matthew Stafford say, you know what? It's been a great run. I might be, probably will be, very well could be a league MVP. The first time in my career, hey, I'm going out with an MVP and I'm going out with a Super Bowl. If Matthew Stafford takes a step back and says, I'm exhausted, I'm hurt, my body hurts, I've given it a long run, I've now put together a pretty solid Hall of Fame resume, I'm out. I'm not playing Chicago again. I'm done with this. And ends up retiring after the season.
The funny thing is your headline would A, make me buy the paper, but B, there's some element of this that I just wonder about. Like, we presume that the Rams are stable moving forward because it's been so good this year. But we really did spend much of the summer as a collective media talking about Stafford's back. And you and I said when we first started the show in August, backs don't get better as you get older, right? Like that's real. So he's going to play in what looks like it's going to be negative degree wind chill. He's going to get knocked around. He's got a hand that's got a bum finger on it that's going to hurt like a you-know-what coming out of that thing, like out of that cold. His body is just going to be wrecked after this. Like I think it's a really interesting thought process of if the Rams lose here and you go out and you're the MVP and you've had the mother of all seasons, but man, 6 months ago, you weren't even sure if you really wanted to keep this going or for how long you want to keep it going. When does that sort of spark die for Stafford? And that's something that the Rams are not prepared for because, as we talk about all the time, proximity to quarterback. I mean, they got Jimmy G on the roster, so maybe they think that that's going to be the savior for him moving forward. But, I mean,
no Stetson Bennett
clearly,
erasure on this program.
Sorry, Stetson. Didn't mean to gloss over Stetson Bennett. Yes, I did. But no, there's some level of the thought of if Stafford walks away. You know, just a few years ago, we were saying, does McVay want to walk away? Aaron Donald's going to retire. Matt Stafford might retire. Aaron Donald did retire, and they completely reloaded right away. If there's a scenario where Stafford walks away, the Rams will be absolutely they'll be back to square one trying to figure out what to do at the most important position in sports. I get how great their coach is, but that would be jarring and shocking because it would wildly change the expectations for the entire NFC next year.
Well, they went from Jared Goff, one of the most highly touted quarterbacks in the draft, to then Matthew Stafford, who now are viewed as and are two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. The Rams haven't been in quarterback purgatory since they drafted Jared Goff. And I think, we all remember those lovely days of quarterback purgatory going on with the Rams when they were in St. Louis. But this would be the first time really that we see Sean McVay identifying his quarterback, drafting his quarterback, developing his quarterback, making the assumption that they would draft a quarterback. That maybe they sign a quarterback in free agency. Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. So I think that you're very fair in pointing out the question marks that would exist with the Rams moving forward at the quarterback position. But as far as it concerns with Matthew Stafford, let's say Matthew Stafford does hang it up today. I think that his legacy is cemented. You won a Super Bowl, maybe an MVP. We'll see. If Matthew Stafford decides to come back next season, is there still a legacy for Matthew Stafford to continue to write? Or are we all just kind of set in our ways of, the mental box that we've put Matthew Stafford and his career into?
I think another Super Bowl would probably change some of the way that we view Stafford. I think that's probably fair. But also, if you're Stafford, you got to look at it, especially if he does win the MVP this year and say, man, I just had the best year of my career, and the variable of winning the Super Bowl, to think about just the fact that the Rams are in this situation. I mean, just look at the way the season went. They're a 12-5 team that's on the road because they're a 12-5 team that didn't win their division. Like, that's how crazy the NFC is. If you're Stafford, you're looking around and saying, certainly another Super Bowl would help my legacy, but the path to the Super Bowl, I genuinely believe, involves as much, if not more, luck than it does skill. The way everything breaks out is such a huge part of the conversation. So I think there's probably legacy left to be accomplished with the Super Bowl, but also I think Stafford's smart enough to know that's a variable I don't control when I'm coming off of what could be the best year of my career. What do you
just
think?
ask the Lions?
Yeah.
Like, just ask the Lions how hard it is, not just to get back into the postseason, but to get back to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. There's no guarantees in this league.
You are 1,000% right. Oh, we do have one guarantee. That's that Ben Fawkes is going to make us smarter. Ben Fawkes going to join us next. We'll get his thoughts on everything coming up this weekend and yet another betting scandal in sports. Who knew? Happens every day.
Perhaps you would be expecting me to say, nice to meet you, but we've actually met once before, Vince. Getting to be backstage at a wrestling event. Kurt Angle took a liking to me for some reason, and he introduced me to you. We were sitting outside having lunch, and he said, hey, this is Ariel. The only thing I remember you saying was, what are you, some kind of smart mark? What are you, some kind of internet fan? And then that was it. I was like, holy, and I remember calling my friend like, I think Vince Russo just insulted me. This is incredible.
People got on me when I talked about Ohtani, and I saw him play one inning of one baseball game when I was still playing, and I looked at Luis Severino. I said, this is the best baseball player I've ever seen in my life. He's the biggest, he's the fastest, he's the strongest. He hits the ball the furthest. He throws the ball the hardest. Like, he is really, incredible. I mean, he really shows up in these big moments, and it's just incredible to be able to watch him do his thing, man.
Every Sunday I'll have the thought, how on earth could a Titans fire Mike Vrabel? Mike Vrabel is one of the best coaches in the NFL and always has been. He's always gotten the most out of his talent. The New England Patriots making it back to the Super Bowl, just 6 years after Tom Brady leaves, when everybody was just dunking on the Patriots and, oh my goodness, Patriots are dead. And them making it back to the Super Bowl would be alternately cool and pretty fun to see everybody lose their minds over.
I always think somewhere somebody's watching their first college football game in person or on TV, and any given game could be that game. This was someone's first college football game yesterday. This person is set up for crushing disappointment the rest of the way, because eventually they're going to watch Rutgers. Northwestern games are going to happen to you. So just prepare. It's okay. You got it. You got to let the bad with the good in. That's all.
Ben Fawkes tweets out, according to a federal indictment unsealed Thursday in Pennsylvania per ABC News and David Purdom, 20 men charged in point shaving scheme, easy for me to say, involving more than 39 college basketball players on at least 17 Division I NCAA teams, more than 29 games fixed. The list goes on and on. This is over the course of several years. It involved college basketball. It involved the Chinese Basketball Association. Yet another sports betting scandal. We started the show by asking the question, is sports gambling ruining sports? Ben Fawkes joins us now, senior betting analyst at Yahoo Sports. Ben, we have another scandal. Is this latest scandal the most damaging yet to you?
Yeah, I love the topic in the A block too. It's like, all right, is sports gambling ruining sports? We have 20 seconds, go. No, I love you guys had a long, nuanced discussion about that. I think for me, the thing to look at with this one is kind of comparing, and in essence, just the fact I'm saying, hey, let's compare it to the previous, 5 or 6 scandals, I think says something about certainly where we are in today's day and age with legalized sports betting. But ultimately, to me, this one is a little different and a little more concerning because it affects what is number one for every single sport, especially the colleges as well, which is the integrity of the game, right? And so when you're talking about some of these previous scandals, the Guardians pitchers, you can say, okay, it's Emmanuel Clase, it's the 9th inning, he's throwing a ball, right? And people are parlaying that, making money. That's not good. That's not good. However, it isn't really impacting necessarily the game. Same thing with the NBA. A lot of those are kind of dealing with, hey, inside information. We're saying LeBron James might not play, so you're getting a better point spread that you might get later. Again, the team still has to go out and perform. It's not impacting the players or some of the players who allegedly were involved. It's their individual over-unders, right? So again, Jonte Porter, whether or not he scores 4 points versus 6 points versus 2 points in the first quarter, probably isn't going to impact the overall game. This, though, you're talking about going up to individual college players as well who likely aren't being paid or aren't being paid as much with NIL than certainly some of their maybe players they played in high school with, some of their friends, and offering money to do specific actions, right, to impact the overall game. And I think that's the big concern is the whole thing with sports, right, is that we are watching something that is real. This isn't wrestling. This is real. Two teams are both trying to win. And if you're betting on that, you want to feel like, hey, I had a fair shake. And so that's the biggest thing to me with this scandal is obviously there's a lot of players, there's a lot of different games, but impacting the integrity of the game, I think that's number one. And then number two is kind of the sheer volume. I haven't gone through the entire 70-page indictment yet, but just from seeing what Pete Thamel and David Purdom and others were tweeting out, the sheer volume that these groups were able to get down. We're talking $458,000 on a Towson game, right? $400,000, $24,000 on a Kent State first half. So is this also on the sports books for taking that much money? How much are they spreading this out? Because there's no way amounts like that aren't setting off red flags. People are not betting that much on a Kent State first half. So there's a lot certainly to this. I think there's a lot of greed that comes along with all these, which is generally also why they're caught, both with the integrity monitoring systems that we have set up with sports books, and then also that people can't help themselves. If something seems too good to be true, let's do more of it. Let's push the envelope a bit. So to me, those are kind of two of the bigger things with this one that's a little more concerning than potentially some of the other ones.
Kind of taking a step back and looking at it from a more philosophical standpoint, I'm curious, as somebody who is an expert on this and has made a living talking about gambling, where are you in the balance of all of the good that sports betting has brought to sports, the amount of attention, the amount of money, versus the moral question marks or the questions about the integrity of the game?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's always difficult because that in this industry there are going to be people who are betting too much, regardless of this, right? This is something different, and bribing players, etc. This is illegal just in terms of the overall kind of sports betting. There are going to be people who do it to excess and they can't control themselves, and it's going to lead to bad, financial outcomes and worse. I do think it is the same as you guys were talking about other vice industries, right? Whether that's alcohol, whether that's marijuana, that also have been legalized. For marijuana, right? Same thing state by state. That is taxable revenue. And you can, they do as much as they can. You can argue whether they could do more. I think certainly sports betting operators can do more, right? There certainly are too many push notifications saying, hey, you haven't bet in a while. Maybe it's time to bet right now on this random game. There's probably too many advertisements. I think there's a lot of things that the industry can do as well that would make people happier as well, just in terms of overall feeling like, hey, this is a little more getting a fair shake. We know what we're getting into. But ultimately, sports betting was here. Sports betting's been around since the Greeks and the Romans, right? It's not going anywhere. It already was happening pre-2018. I've been covering this since 2010. The page views that we had at ESPN.com on gambling traffic weren't coming from 35 people in Nevada, right? It was from all over the US because people were already betting. They weren't just doing it. They just weren't doing it legally. So it's been there. It's not going away. I don't think we need to push it in that direction. But I do think there are some kind of restrictions, limitations, as we started to see a paring back. Do we need as big a betting menu, right? Do we need as large limits on some of these low-level props if we offer them? So I think there's some things that'll come into this, but ultimately it is the responsibility as well of everyone. You're an adult. You get to choose whether or not you want to participate in this. Some of that is on you, and I do think some more responsibility as well is on the sports books.
I will say I'm willing to admit always that where you're from and what you grew up around influences so much of how you see things. I grew up in Vegas as a kid. I grew up around casinos. I grew up around sports gambling. So I'm such a big believer in, hey, personal responsibility. It's not Cheesecake Factory's job to tell you not to eat 10 cheesecakes at one sitting. It's your job to walk away from the table at some point. I know, not a popular opinion. Please check out our conversation. It was long form at the beginning of the show, by the way. A lot of depth on this. But, Ben, I want to move to the college football world because we got to get to some of the games. National championship is on Monday. Indiana, an 8.5-point favorite over Miami. Where does Indiana sort of rank amongst biggest favorites that we've seen in a Natty, and how have the big favorites normally fared in these situations?
Yeah, so we've seen the last couple of years some of these semi-lopsided favorites, right? More than a touchdown And Indiana opened 7.5 at a lot of books, got pushed up to 8.5. It's really been, talking to a couple odds makers, what they like to say, one-way traffic, right? Everybody, the public, is betting Indiana, as you would expect, right? We just saw them crush Alabama, and we just saw them crush Oregon. Two teams that it would be very difficult a few years ago to say, hey, Indiana is going to blow out either one, right? These are blue blood, college football programs, and Indiana has crushed both of them. We see here on the graphic, as an 8.5-point favorite since 2013, I believe the favorite's 5-0 straight up. They've won every single game, and 4-1 against the spread, with that only one being Florida State winning that game, but Auburn covering. So the favorites have generally done well in this situation. Sometimes it's a little bit more, I think, of a talent imbalance between the two in previous seasons. I am curious, like we've seen the last couple, right? 2023, Georgia, we remember that 13.5-point favorite. They crushed TCU. But Ohio State last year, 8.5-point favorite against Notre Dame. Notre Dame never really in that game. And obviously college football has changed so much just in the last couple of seasons. So I think this is about it. The market is very high on Indiana, right? You're probably getting a little more than you should. If you want to bet Miami, you're getting probably a point or so. But man, you're getting in front of that train with Indiana. I think that's dangerous for a lot of public bettors, and that's why we haven't seen this line come back at all. I think it probably will be around that 8.5, maybe touch 9. I think it's probably going to be in that range. It's not going to necessarily get too much higher. But right now, all the money is on Indiana. And it's hard to see them not winning this game and potentially not covering as well as we've seen historically. That's generally what the big favorites do.
Talking about Indiana here. Man, welcome to the
So
new
weird.
world of
So
college
weird.
football.
Yeah.
So crazy. A testament to them and to Kurt Netty, though. But I do want to transition to the world of the NFL. We have the divisional round of the playoffs coming up this weekend. Want to look at what's going down at Mile High Stadium. The Bills originally opened as a 1.5 road favorites, but the line then shifted in favor of the Broncos. Now the Broncos just narrow 1-point favorites over Buffalo. Explain that line movement to us.
Yeah, so I think, and just to touch on basically the rarity of that potential home underdog, if the Broncos close as a home underdog, and it certainly could flip back, that would only be the third time since 1970 that a number one seed was an underdog in the divisional round. The most recent was that 2017 Eagles team, which as a Vikings fan, we don't speak of that team. But in that divisional round matchup, they were a 2.5-point home underdog against the Falcons. So a very rare situation if that's the case. We've seen this line move a bit. I think a combination of some respected money taking Denver to push that at least 2 pick or over to Denver as a favorite. And then also the kind of mounting injuries potentially for the Bills, right? They already have a wide receiver core that's been damaged by injuries. Now Gabe Davis is out. Tyrell Shavers is out. Just the fact that we're talking about Tyrell Shavers and it's important that he's out, I think speaks to how thin that wide receiver core is for Buffalo. And also on the defensive side, now Jordan Poyer, that kind of back end, patrolling quarterback, the safety, he's out with a hamstring, and Maxwell Hairston, their first round pick corner, also ruled out against the Broncos. We're not sure about Terrell Bernard, also a very important player for the for the Bills. So a lot of injuries on that side. Obviously, Josh Allen banged up too. And again, not as big a move, right? This isn't like last week when we saw the Eagles move from about 3.5-point favorite to 6. That is a massive move. This is a smaller one, but still significant that the Broncos are currently a small favorite at home.
Well, Broncos fans love to scream disrespect. They are the number one seed. You talk to odds makers about power ratings coming into the playoffs. How do they view the Broncos?
Yeah, not too highly, I would say. So Broncos fans won't be happy with that, right? But ultimately, you go by what you've seen on the field, and the Broncos basically kept winning these games, right? And that's how they have the gaudy record and the number one seed. But you wouldn't say it's particularly impressive going back as far as, I don't know, week 18 against Trey Lance, right? This wasn't the Seahawks earlier in the season playing the Commanders. It was 35-0 in the first quarter. This was struggling. They eventually covered the spread, but that's also something Denver didn't do a lot this season. They were 10-2 as a favorite, but only 3-9 in those games against the spread. So they won the games against the teams they should beat. They didn't necessarily cover the spread. And as a result, talking to two odds makers before the postseason, neither one had Denver in the top 5 of their power ratings. They had the Rams, both had Rams number 1, both had the Seahawks number 2. And that was a combination of the Bills, the Patriots, and the Eagles in that top 5 in some order, 3 through 5. So those were kind of the top 5 teams coming into the postseason. Doesn't mean Denver can't win it all. They certainly can. They have home field advantage. They're rested. They have a very good team and a very, very good defense. But it's just that overall kind of you didn't do what you're supposed to do necessarily against some of the lower teams. We all remember the Jets game in London, the Giants game that had to come back to barely beat the Giants, that Chargers game, the Raiders on Thursday night. So it's a large pattern with the Broncos. They've still been winning the games, and ultimately in the playoffs, that's all you have to do. But they haven't been particularly impressive, whereas at least earlier in the season, the Seahawks, the Rams, some of those teams were dominating some of the lower level competition, covering those spreads as well.
Another great matchup that we get this weekend, Niners, Seahawks. And I think that one's interesting to look at it from a betting angle because we just got this matchup a couple of weeks ago in the final week of the regular season. The 49ers enter this game as 7-point underdogs. Now, that could change depending on the availability of Sam Darnold, but where things stand right now, how do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, this is another one with a historic angle. So when it was 7.5, that was the second largest underdog the Niners have been in their postseason history, right? So they're not usually in this position of a big underdog. 49ers, they're usually in the postseason. They're usually favored in a lot of these games, and they have been recently. A lot of this is just injuries, right? I think if you took the 49ers at full strength against the Seahawks at full strength, I like the Niners, and that would be an interesting point spread to kind of see where that is. But they have so many injuries with Nick Bosa. Fred Warner obviously practiced. He will not play this game, but has been out most of the season. Michael Williams has been out. Brandon Ayuk hasn't played. Ricky Pearsall, we're not sure if he's going to play. They have such a thin linebacking core as well, which Philadelphia didn't take advantage of last week. This one is just difficult for me to see how the Niners are going to stay in it. Every single stat really points to the Seahawks. Seahawks number 1 in DVOA, number 1 on defense. They also number 2 on special teams DVOA, so that's not a weakness, whereas for a team like the Rams, that is. Seahawks on 14 days rest. The Niners have 6. Teams in NFL history with that discrepancy in rest, 7-0 straight up in the playoffs. Sam Darnold as a favorite, 13-0 straight up as a favorite of at least 6 points, 10-3 against the spread. And ultimately, the Niners, too, their defense just doesn't get pressure. They came into these playoffs getting the fewest sacks per game in NFL playoff history at 1.2. I think, as Andrew Siciliano said on Inside Coverage, Myles Garrett had more sacks than the San Francisco 49ers did as a team. They also had 1 sack against the Eagles. So it's not like they had a ton against Philadelphia. Their defense hasn't been great. They're not great against the pass. They're not great against the run. And yet, as I put in my notes, we now have Sam Darnold up on the injury report. We're not sure with that oblique. Sam Darnold was first in QBR the first 10 weeks. He's now, I think, 27th since then, so hasn't been playing as well. It just seems like something is going to keep this game close, but man, it's tough not to feel like the Seahawks are going to roll in this one.
You guys can read him on Yahoo Sports, obviously. You can follow him on social media. Ben, appreciate your willingness to come on and have some tough conversations about gambling and sports, considering all the great work you do. Really appreciate you, my friend. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. YahooSports.com/betting to check out some of the great work there. Always appreciate your insights. Enjoy the weekend of wild football, Ben.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks,
Great
Ben.
stuff from Ben Fawkes. Coming up next, it's the trend of the millennium of the moment. We're all looking back to 2016, which might have actually been the best year ever for sports. We'll tell you about it next.
And I didn't have any gym equipment. I didn't live near a gym. So I would watch TV, and every commercial break, I'd jump on the floor and bust out some leg lifts from Jane Fonda, or I'd jump on the floor and bust out some push-ups from Herschel Walker. And my dad just saw me doing this for months. And he was like, yo, if you really are that committed, I'll work out with you. And that's really what got me going and doing anything that was athletic, was my dad.
And nobody realized we're fighting for world titles, jerking curtains For a guy from Australia and a dude from the Caucasus region, I would never open a show for a dude from Australia, just so you understand.
Why not?
Ever.
Why not? Why not?
That's not a combat-driven country. That's not real. You can't get a scholarship and go to a college for any combat form in Australia. It's not real.
I wanted to make this into what does it look like moving forward now with Travis Hunter, because the light went on, I think.
The two-way things, like, it's not off the table yet. The sky's not falling. Now the scoreboard reads one season-ending injury. I think if there's another season-ending injury next year, it's done. Maybe the silver lining is, well, he rehabs this knee and goes through this process, his body finally gets a rest.
What do you think could be the next NBA trend?
But I think you're going to see a lot more full court pressure from many teams in the league. So I'm interested to see that. Obviously, every year everybody talks about wanting to play faster, and sustaining that through 7 games, I think, is easier than being able to sustain it for 82. You're going to see a lot more backcourt pressure in our league this upcoming year. And I like to think that us as a group and the success we had last season will have a lot to do with that.
Oh, look at that. That's 2016. As everybody continues to look back on Instagram at the greatness that 2016 was. Is that Mardi Gras? Is that where we're hanging out, Caroline Fenton?
That was Mardi Gras. That was my very first New Orleans Mardi Gras. My first year living in Louisiana.
Oh, that's amazing. That's electric. That is a great
Look at
memory
my chunky
for a
little
place that you
cheeks.
love. Oh, whatever. I will have you know the picture of me there in the pumpkin suit. The irony, I don't know, irony. The funny part about that is that was on my first college football show for ESPN on ESPNU with Mike Golick Jr. and Elika Sadeghi. And they had told us wear Halloween costumes. So I bought that suit, and our show was every Monday. I bought that suit to wear it on Monday. So I bought it like 2 weeks before. The Saturday night before our show, David S. Pumpkins made his debut on SNL. I already owned the suit. I hadn't even watched the episode of SNL yet. So, like, because I had been so busy that weekend, I hadn't seen it. I wore it on Monday, and everybody's like, you already got the David S. Pumpkin suit? And I was like, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. I bought that suit by choice. I bought that suit by choice, not realizing that Tom Hanks was going to make it much more famous than I ever would. So let's have a little bit of fun. Let's take a trip down memory lane for 2016, which, by the way, a quick Google search yesterday, because my memory, I did not realize how much awesome happened in 2016 in the sports world. So let's take a look. What would be
awesome.
your best sports moment in the sports world in 2016?
There truly were so many great sports moments. We'll walk down all of memory lane. But if you don't know this about me, I love the Olympics. I am an Olympics nerd. I am obsessed with the Olympics. And Rio in 2016 was such an awesome Olympics. I think back to Michael Phelps and his final run in the Olympics, the green pool in Rio. But the number one moment that stands out to me is Simone Biles winning 4 gold medals, including the all-around in Rio. Look how much of a baby she looks. That's really when she came on the global scene. She was already in the gymnastics scene, of course, but that kind of emphatic performance, that's when she became a true household name. I'm an Olympics nerd. I'm also an Olympic gymnastics nerd. And so that was just such a special moment for me.
Humble brag, the band Perry played the Olympics in Rio. We played the Today Show over there, and then we did a performance for Team USA because we had the song for Team USA that year. So we were in Rio for the Olympics. But the funny thing is, when we went to Rio, they gave you these passes so you could get into everything. And then so I was like, oh my God, the thing I wanted to get into the most. They get you into everything, but then they handed us the passes. They were like, by the way, this does not work for women's gymnastics, and it does not work for men's basketball. Don't even ask. So even though, like, I was in the room when Phelps set the new record for most goals, I was in the room. I have the video on my phone. The crowd went nuts. We were still sitting there the whole time. We're like, we want to see the gymnastics. So I'm with you. This was an epic, incredible moment. I think for me, like 2016, I'll always, and I'm not even a baseball guy. I can't believe I say this, but I always think about the Cubs. They beat the Indians in the World Series that year, what that meant to Chicago, what that meant for everybody that was just standing around and realizing, oh my God, the Cubs have won the World Series. For me, 2016, again, big moments here. I thought a lot about Kobe as he was one of the biggest influences for me as an athlete that absolutely impacted my fandom forever. I thought about Kobe. I thought about the NBA Finals in general because they were incredible that year. But I don't know. There's something about the Cubs. What for you was the sports moment in 2016 you just want to flush away?
That one. I'm from St. Louis. I am a Cardinals fan. That was the first team I fell in love with. So, the Cubs and their cutie little Cinderella story. No, that one can go away, okay? Because I haven't had a whole lot of good baseball moments in the last several years as a Cardinal fan. So that one, whenever good things happen to the ones that you hate, don't love. But if I'm going to take my fan hat off, that was such a special moment that you just felt the weight of 100 years lifting off of Cubs fans' shoulders. But the one moment that I would like to flush down the toilet. All right. You're in Auburn, Alabama. LSU's in town. LSU is down 18-13. Danny Etling, that's right. I didn't live through the years of Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels. I lived through Brandon Jennings and Danny Etling, and I'm still a fan. That's how you know. Danny Etling throws a touchdown pass in the final second of the game. So we thought, but nope, no. Poor clock management on behalf of Les Miles. Again, that's how old I am. I was a student when Les Miles was the coach. LSU doesn't get the snap off in time. Game over. LSU, when they should have won 19-18 with good clock management, ended up losing that game 18-13. Les Miles ends up getting fired the very next day. And then they bring in an interim coach named Coach O, and then they hire him as the full-time head coach, and then the rest is history. So it did end up being a very pivotal moment in LSU football history, but that is one game that will always stand out to me in my time as a student and my time as an LSU fan as one that just, it stings every time.
Go Tigers. That stings. I'll paint you a picture also of my least favorite. I want to flush it down the toilet memory. It's Christmas Eve, 2016. I'm sitting with family. We're playing some Uno. I've got the Raiders playing the Colts. It's a Christmas Eve game. Doesn't really matter. The Raiders 12-4 that year. I put the Raiders. It's on a little TV off to the side. Raiders finally winning games. They look like they could actually have a shot. Derek Carr looks like he could be an MVP. I'm watching. We're playing Uno. Everybody's having a great day. It's Christmas Eve. And all of a sudden, I go silent. And the whole family looks over, and they're like, what is wrong? And I'm just staring at the TV. And I just said, Derek Carr just broke his leg. And it was so clear that he had broken his leg. That was it. And all of a sudden, you end up in this world where the backup quarterback's injured. The third-string quarterback tells you he never even bothered to learn the playbook. The Raiders get eliminated in the first round of the playoffs after a 12. I finally had my moment. It was going to be a playoff win. I was going to see greatness, and instead, I watched Derek Carr break his leg on Christmas Eve 2016. So I would take that moment and flush it down the toilet. Every year on Christmas Eve, I just raise a glass and think of watching DC go down. 2016
It's not a Merry Christmas.
No, it wasn't. But 2016 was an incredible year for me. It was the year that I transitioned from music to sports. It was a transformative year of my life. Go check it out. I put one of those carousels out on Instagram at Jason Fitz. Caroline, 2016, how was that for you?
It was a great year for me. Your year was way cooler than mine was. But that was my freshman year of college, freshman/sophomore year of college. So my number one priorities at the time were my social calendar and then whoever LSU was going to hire as their next head coach. So great year for me. Very fun year being a student at LSU. Thank you very much. It was my first New Orleans Mardi Gras and my first hurricane. So a true, actual, not the drink hurricane, literal hurricane. There was floods in the streets for days. So it was my baptism into being a true Louisianan. It's a good year for me.
My year started standing on the sideline for Super Bowl 50 with the band, and they forgot that we were there. So we just stood on the sideline for the entire Super Bowl, right behind everybody playing. Come back Monday. We will be here at 9 a.m. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Have a great weekend.
I wrote down some words I have felt. Maybe you can compile your own list throughout the duration of LSU pursuing Lane Kiffin. I felt entertained. I found myself in disbelief. I felt a lot of intrigue. I felt disgust, fatigue. There's excitement. There's sadness. I felt all these things. So if you've been out there and you've just been watching this and you felt one emotion throughout this whole thing, are you even alive?
How much time did it take for you to kind of acclimate to how they want to do things on both ends of the floor?
it's really simple if you think about it and you understand the game. You know, at the time we had the two best shooters, possibly might be the two best shooters that the game's ever seen. And, you know, my style of play was being a defender. It was easy. Get a stop, get one of them the ball, you know, get them open. There's nothing really much to it.
How are we feeling now? Because it's like, it's not the guys that we're used to seeing, but to put in a performance like this, obviously instills in me a lot of confidence for the World Cup. What does it do for you?
The way in which they're playing with fire, with skill, scoring